Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
We actually need to turn up the
What a weird Wednesday this is.
It has been really crazy. And I was we've got Dave Murray in the background, and he was one of the ones that was like, you should really do cameras on.
Yeah.
And this morning was one of those mornings that it's like, I don't think I'm going to be ready at all. So,
and we had technical stuff.
Oh yeah, it's just been kind of weird.
Yeah, crazy.
It's been kind of weird. Good morning to everybody. Let us know where you're listening
say
from.
Hello. Let us know that we're broadcasting this morning.
Yeah, that you can hear us.
Otherwise,
all the
we'll
stuff.
just talk to each other here. So.
Dave's here too, so we can do that.
Yeah.
Wednesday morning. Where it's like really seriously, it's been a lot of weirdness. Yesterday was Pi Day.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone celebrated Pi. We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of nice to be back in the area. I've got friends that I've had for decade or so, and so as soon as they found out that we were back, they're like, are you coming for Pie Day? Because they do this every year, and they have everyone brings a homemade pie, and then whoever it is that can dictate pie, the number the furthest, is the first one in line to get their pie, and then they rank it. And I mean, it's this really fun thing.
Yeah. It was fun.
It was.
And we got pie out of it.
We got pie, made some new connections.
Yeah.
And
it was fun. It was a good evening.
Yeah, it was a really good evening. So, and we didn't get to bed late or anything. So it's just this morning, I think that we went, my belly is full of pie and I will sleep.
Yeah.
And sleep and sleep.
Yeah. So, hey, I see Karen King Barnett. I got to put in a mention. She's going to be on with us on Friday. So look forward to having her come to the conversation.
Yeah.
She's with a capital provider. I'm sure that'll come up a little bit, but we might talk about money. But we got other things to talk about.
George too. Yes. This is another thing to talk about. So George, home of the new executive director for FIADA, Chuck Bonanno, will actually be on the show next Friday. Not this Friday, but next Friday.
Correct.
And so we'll be chatting with him too. And he's also going to be one of the people that will be joining us for the event on the 30th.
Yeah.
So,
and John Frullo was named the executive director in Texas.
Yeah. Lots of
I think he's out of the Lubbock area. So we need to have him on the show.
I have not met him.
No, me either.
Okay, cool. Then we're looking forward to meeting him at some point. So good morning from sunny PA. And so what else do we have? So we got Karen's coming up, Chuck's coming up.
Yeah, just a quick mention. We're now 14 days left to register for the event. For those of you, we sent out some passes here and there. If you haven't registered, let us know. We can get you registered, but you gotta be registered to be able to see the archived events. We know many of you will be busy on that day and have to pop in and out, but you want to be registered.
That way you'll have access to all the recordings. That's going to be the important part. We do have for the morning show, there's a bunch of different codes that we've sent out to different companies, organizations, and for ours it's morning show 100 for $100 off now.
Grab that.
So grab that until the day of the event. So if you guys want to get registered for that takes it down to just under 100.
Just BHPHNationTV.com to get registered.
Yep, absolutely.
And I got to throw a quick mention in for our sponsors. I'm about to put out a post out on Facebook, but also just a quick mention for our sponsors, Neo Verify, the underwriting folks, Dealer RE, the reinsurance company from the East Coast, Butler and Sanchez, whom everybody knows, the accounting firm, and then LHPH Capital is joining us as a sponsor for that event. So thanks to all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we still have some that are coming in. So we'll add those next one. Of course, all that gets all.
Shall we get to our topic? I'm actually looking forward to this conversation with Dave around the follow-up on the rest of the story.
Good morning.
It's the rest of it. Who
I
was
don't know
that?
how many of our listeners are old enough. That was
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey. The rest. We should start a Paul Harvey thing. Hey.
don't know
for
if
the
anybody,
rest
we're
of
the
the
only ones who
story.
are old enough to know, I think. So,
Yeah.
That was every morning on the way to school. My dad dropped me off. We had to listen to Paul Harvey. So
yeah.
Some really great stuff.
Yeah.
It was I remember listening to that too. And so dating ourselves, it's kind of like when I say Reader's Digest version, and I don't think that anyone under 30, even 40, even knows what a Reader's Digest.
I have a gray on my face and no hair. I think I pretty well date myself most of the time.
And I'm a guy
Categorize myself.
Yeah.
Fine.
I'm a guy who used to ride around on a tractor on the farm and only had AM radio in the tractor. So you got Paul Harvey and whatever else they were feeding you, but yeah, it was entertaining. It was good stuff. He was a good storyteller.
Isn't it kind of funny how that there still is radio? I mean, and we'll listen to it every once in a while, but and AM and FM radio, it's still a thing with Spotify and Pandora and all of the things that's still a thing.
Yeah, it's a changing world. But
should we talk about what we're here to talk about instead of just
we should get to that.
shooting the breeze? So
did you do? Question: did you make it to your outing with your friends then?
To Pi Day?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, who won?
Some young kid, some whippersnapper.
And I was just like, that's just not fair.
12-year-olds spouted off about 7 or 8.
Really, yeah. And he was just there.
I got over it. There was still pecan pie when I got to the line.
And the gal, the family that does this every year, all of the kids are in pie t-shirts with the pie symbol, and she's got pie earrings. I mean, this is an event every single year.
Yeah.
So
we've
missed it a couple of years. It's fun.
We had fun nerding out. So.
We really did. Okay, so story. Those of you who listened last week, we talked about our quest to find long-term lodging, a rental property, because we're going to be here in the Utah area for the next year. And really, really, really rotten experience. I mean, just so transactional, so just trying. Every question that I got after asking a question was another disqualifying question. And the listing didn't even have pictures of the inside of the house. So I'm just like, before I answer any more questions, can I just come see the house? And she's like, yes, just shoot me off a picture of your license and I'll give you the code for the front door. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
After all that.
And can't even have a person there. It's completely no connection whatsoever. And so I bitched. Can I say
she
that
was
online?
upset. Yeah, I think so. We'll find out. Just throw it out there.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it was a really negative experience, and so I never responded. So last Wednesday afternoon after the morning show, I was like, one of the problems that I was seeing is that 3/4 plus of all the properties out there are rent to own. And I think it's because the market's gone soft. And so and you have to go through this whole pre-qualifying thing. And they say it's going to take 45 days. And I love my daughter, but I am not going to stay in the basement for another 45 days. I love her, but it's kind of time. Yeah. And so I reshuffled everything to the oldest listing first. And so the oldest listing first, I was like, call it, and it was an owner. And so I sent a text and I said, hey, is this property still available? And I immediately get a text back, says, yeah, it is. Do you want to come and take a look at it? Yes, I do. And so the next thing is, well, what time do you want to come today? And it's like, yes, I do. How about 5:00? And he says, 5:00 will work. I've got a couple errands in the area. And so I'll just meet you up there. You got the right address. This is the right address. Da, 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 da. All right. So see you then. And so that was the end of the conversation. Just like very inviting, very come and see us. Every response was finished off with a question that invited me to continue to engage. And I don't think this gentleman understands the nuances of, communicating with people and trying to get them to, but it's like natural for him. So we show up, lovely, outside, and we come in, and he's just showing us every nook and cranny. And he's just, a lot of like pride in this project because they had remodeled it. And he's, just every little thing. He's like, okay, so here's the master closet. Will that be big enough for you guys? Here's the this and just kind of going through all the different. They even took us to underneath the stairs, and he's like, okay, so when you guys when you guys move in, this is where you hook up all of the cable and the da 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 da. I mean, assuming the sale the whole way through, not a single qualifying question.
Not one.
He doesn't know us from Adam. And I'm walking through this place, and I'm thinking to myself, they misprinted the rent, because this is going to be at least $1,000 more than we're anticipating. At least $1,000 more, because it's just view of the entire valley. I mean, it's beautiful.
Place is immaculate.
And it's immaculate. And so I'm just like, crap. They're going to want more than I feel like, feel comfortable doing. And I really like this house. And so I'm thinking to myself, the last, 15 minutes or 10 minutes that we're walking through is like, what do I do? What do I do if they say it's going to be more? How can we make this work? Because I liked the house.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so inviting, and it's just kind of like it felt like, hey, we're friends. And he was, genuinely happy to see us and show us the stuff, and just this really cute excitement about all the things and the bells and the whistles and, the stuff that had happened. And so we get upstairs to the kitchen, and the man loves to wire lights. There are lights everywhere, but it's so nice and bright. So he's, the lights around in the kitchen is super, super bright. And then he goes, so there are just two things. And I mean, we're in it like a half an hour now. There are just two things: no pets and no smoking. You cool with that? And I mean, still no application.
No financial
qualifications. He's like, these are the two things. You cool with that? And he did, before he added that, he said, I've had, a lot of people that have come through. Because I think this property had been on the market for 5 months or something. But he says, so many people have pets, and so he's like, we're really, because they want to keep the property nice. Mm-hmm. But so no pets, no smoking. You cool with that? And we're like, okay, so how much is it? And I mean, and so he reiterated what it was that was on the listing, and we're both looking at each other like, oh my gosh, this is and that's probably one of the reasons why, is because, like, I just kind of want you to make sure make sure I don't have any hidden cameras. I will.
Yeah,
I will. I see TikTok things on how to determine whether or not it's a two-way mirror.
Yeah.
Which, one of these days we'll have to tell you a little bit about a couple of things they left in the house from the previous owners, which are hilarious. And so, we filled out an application, got a phone call got a message within minutes, like, yep, let's do this. And it was so pleasant.
I think the tie-in, Dave, for kind of to bring it back to the car side of this is, we had just had that weird experience, which we shared on the morning show, and that we had done that sort of on the heels of, I did a poll on Facebook about, first of all, months ago, I did one about what's the order sales process, and then this time I asked really the question, which of these two comes first, a test drive or an application at your Buy Here, Pay Here dealership? And I think the responses came back in the range of 60% of people do an application first. So for us in the car business, this kind of ties in, like, you hear this gentleman who we ultimately rented from just assumed the sale, gave us the full tour, assumed we were going to be the renters. And of course we ultimately became the renters, but it's like, that's the part that we're kind of trying to drill down to, is in the experience that we create. And one quick aside, I had a meeting yesterday with one of our clients who's also in real estate. She's starting a Buy Here, Pay Here dealership. And she said, I heard your episode about that realtor. She said, that's such a black eye for, our space. And then for me, Dave, the business owner says, what about those people that own that property and they've got this real estate agent out there representing them? They probably would like to have, a solid renter, but the real estate agent, kind of just ruined the whole experience. We never even saw the property that these folks own. And so you get the point. It's like, this is what we're trying to drill down to in the car business, is this whole thing about qualifying a customer on the front end. And so that's really the crux of what we're trying to get to. But your thoughts on that?
Well, thanks for sharing the story. I was wondering how that all finished up. Actually, I hadn't really talked to you about how it all ended, so it was interesting to hear how that went. Boy, I've spent so much of my life. I spent the first part of my life doing a lot of customer service, and so it's kind of near and dear to who I am, and it's kind of how I, the formative years of learning how to interact with people. As evidenced by my age, I'm probably a little bit more demanding customer service wise, or expect more, because that was how I was expected to do these things. And so I go back to that basic first interaction of like, what is the goal, right, of the connection? And I think I was trained by 75-year-old people who I was taking their groceries out of their car, of like how to service people and see people and talk to people, and instead of just providing the thing of like, first of all, just having a conversation with them. And I think that's what this gentleman did, is like didn't see you as the potential renter, but said, okay, yeah, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but said, look, let's just meet the person, let's just talk to them and meet them where they are.
Yeah.
And then go from there, like start at the real connection spot first. And I think I see this in all kinds of businesses. I'm sure everybody does, is that when businesses start to scale up, everybody's just a number. And so maintaining that human connection, which is so vital and so valuable, and it has to be real. It can't be forced.
Yes.
It needs to be authentic. And I think that's where it comes back to authenticity in what is happening. Is one of the best one of the best ways forward in starting any conversation. And I think that, I saw the poll too. He's like, okay, do you just try to, because everybody's in this mind, well, I don't want to waste any of my time. Okay, well then you don't. I think qualifying that and going through all these screening processes, yeah, you might end up not making the deal. But what happens if you are that person where maybe it doesn't work out that day, but you are kind to them, and then they said, you know what, they were really nice, we're going to come back when we get something in order, or trying to find a collective solution for them, like, okay, this one thing doesn't qualify me, how maybe I have some ideas on maybe how to help them, right?
Yeah.
It's just we put up so many barriers because we're trying to scale, and we're like, okay, we'll fit here and we'll fit here. And I think I made the comment on Monday of like, maybe you were talking to a bot in some of these, because it's so lacking humanity, and it's a turnoff, at least to our generation. I'm kind of curious about the younger generations, because they have a different interaction with different things. They're used to certain things or not used to certain things, and so they might not care as much. But I think innately we all want and crave somebody who's actively listening to us. Right?
It's humans, I think, crave connection. And they want to be, I use the term seen, and Jim's like, I don't think a lot of people understand what seen means, but it's like, that's like, what I have to say has been heard. And what my situation is whatever is, it's understood. And so being seen is about like, all right, what do you got? How can we help you? And just listening to the person throughout the whole process. And I kind of like with this, and with the world of buy here, pay here dealerships, this is only a 1-year relationship. And when we're talking to people that are coming into our dealerships, that's a 3 to 4 year relationship. And so it just, to me, it was like, I also, we're us and relatively responsible all the time. But we're gonna, like, we like these people, and we know that I met the wife, and Connie's just adorable, all the stuff. And so it's like, we know the people that we are going to be paying rent to every month. We know them, that it's like, if there's any problem, that we can just easily give them a call and say, hey, this is the thing, what do you think we should, because it's a rental. And it really does set a very different way to start this whole relationship. And we see all the time, do you hire someone because they have loads of experience, because they can sell anything, or do you hire someone because they know how to connect with people? And just, it's like, you can load a lip, and you can have them, teach them the right process. This is the process, you do this and this and this, but it's like, so this is just me. I see Jim's eyes furrowing, so I'm like waiting, because he's going to go, well, let's talk about this a little bit differently. But if you get someone in there that is not afraid to have a conversation, and that can connect with people and be friendly and not broom, and just like, how can we help you? We're here to help you. I love working here because we help people. This is so cool. What can we do? Fantastic.
Yeah. And I think in the car business side of it, where it comes, as a former dealer myself, and having worked with lots of dealers in lots of places, I just see that if dealers would just do the math through their CRM and see, okay, what percentage of customers that we meet and that we take an application from ultimately qualify.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask the question, how many of them might have qualified if we'd added co-buyer or added $1,000 down, or more, or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think the problem that we run into in our sales process is we tend to filter out folks. And my concern is, we're going to miss some business. Like, if I'm a dealer, I understand we can't help everybody. We're going to miss some customers, but I want that decision to be as close to my desk as a dealer as possible. I don't want people out on the front end making a judgment about somebody, right away because of some disqualifying situation. In fact, Dave, one of the things I always tell dealers when we're working with them when they're brand new in business, I say, one of the things we see in this space, like, we could do it right here in Salt Lake City. You could go out to buy here, pay here dealerships and walk up do a mystery shop. And I would bet that in the first 30 to 60 seconds, you're going to be asked, how much down payment are you working with? What's your job time? What's your income? You're going to get those disqualifying questions within the first 60 seconds in all likelihood. Yep. And so we're just saying, look, it's an opportunity for us to do something different. If we approach the customer as though they're going to qualify, and we take the time to get to know them, will we end up investing some time with customers, that don't ultimately buy? You bet we will. Will they leave with good things to say about us and maybe send their neighbors and friends and family? Perhaps.
Or come back when they feel like they're in a position.
When they get their tax refund and have a down payment that makes sense, will they come back and see it? We hope so. Like, that's kind of the premise that I'm operating on here. And what the takeaway that I get from the story is like, I think we sometimes run the risk of having our people on the front end run away customers who otherwise would be candidates. And this is where, gosh, it's just a missed business opportunity. It happens so much in the dealerships we see. And so I just think that's the takeaway for me, is like, I just don't want to see people on the front end, especially who don't have a real vested interest in the thing, to make those judgments. And so really that's what's happening here, is we just saw the gentleman just be so assumptive about everything and just walked us through. And
if it had been that, like, we didn't qualify, let's just say, then we would have tried to move mountains to, like, what is it that we need to do to get this to happen? Because it's like, you're already invested in a relationship,
but also because the people, we felt comfortable dealing with the people.
Yeah. And I think to myself, it could have been very transactional, and he could have had us in, but having that connection with the owner, it's like, we know these, it feels like we know these people, and it just adds a different, like, you don't feel like a number. And so it's like, it's just a rental, in a way, to me, it feels a little bit more like, okay, I like these people and I want them to continue to like me. We're going to follow all the rules, and we're going to do this stuff because I like them.
The other thing that's interesting, Dave, is that at the end of the conversation, the guy told us, as we was talking about the thing about dogs and smoking, he said, we could have rented this place many times over. And the neighbor later told us it had been on the market for quite some time. So he said, we could have rented this place many times over if it hadn't been for the dogs and, the thing about pets and smoking. And so you'd think he would lead with that, right? I mean, you'd think that'd be among the first questions he asked, either on the phone or when we showed up for the tour.
Because those are hard no's.
But yet he still took the time, invested the whole thing in the whole walkthrough, very assumptive. And so I just find it interesting that, ultimately it worked out just great for us. But I'm just saying, I think there is a valid lesson in that we can take away just about, being assumptive. If we assume, and I think the math is in our favor on that. If we assume the customer qualifies in our buy here, pay here space, and we walk them through, of course, there will come a point where we have to ask them questions that might otherwise be a limitation. That there will come a point in the process where we have to do that. But I'm always trying to help dealers design their sales process in a way that we get as many customers as deep into the process as possible, so that the decision makers, whoever we've appointed as decision maker, if it's not us as the dealer, they're the ones making those decisions. And they're the ones, because I got to say, as a dealer myself, and I know a lot of the dealers we work with, they pride themselves in being super creative problem solvers. Find a way to do the deal if there's a way to get there. And I don't think that's true of the people that work on the front lines for many of our dealers out there. And so that's why we just got to be careful that our process doesn't inadvertently, sometimes the salesperson disqualifies the customer. Sometimes the salesperson says so much that the customer concludes that they don't qualify themselves. You know what I mean? And so now we've just missed an opportunity. And so that's the part that really drives me nuts is that, we work too hard. We spend too much money to build our business and run ads and whatever else. And we create this traffic and then we kind of mishandle that traffic. And so this is something that, I want to see dealers be able to improve. And so I thought the story was, a relevant way to get there. So what are you thinking, Dave? What else?
I think it's right on the money. I think you brought up some really good points. One of the things that it made me think of is that it's also empowering the people that work for you to make decisions.
Sure.
And say, here are our goals. And yet you have to, as a manager or an owner, you have to respect that and also not say one thing and then, your actions speak something else. For example, it's been interesting. My daughter has got her first retail job, and I managed retail for a while, one of my first jobs, and we were very, very successful, and I was taught and I learned some really good lessons from some very wise people in business. So I feel like I have a really good understanding of that. And it's interesting to hear from her as a kind of a brand new employee, the expectations and the barriers that people already set up, and it's counter to their goals. Meaning, like, well, we want business, we want long-term business, we want to take care of the customers, we want to make sure they're having a great experience. But then they put demands on and say, well, you can't, we don't want you to interact too long, and some things like that where, in my opinion, they're doing it kind of backwards from what I think a good customer service experience should be or could be. And so I think understanding that as an owner or a manager of people is like, you've got to make sure you're taking those barriers out of the way, and that you're also teaching them and listening to them. Like, asking them what do you think we could say, engaging them, trying to make that a collective experience to where, how do we do this? So so instead of you need to do this, you need to engage the customers, I need you to talk to these people. It's like, okay, well, how here's what we want to accomplish. How do we do this best? And having that kind of rapport with people who work for you might help avoid some of those issues. That's the one thing that kind of came to mind as you're talking, because I think sometimes it is. It's like it's we want to do these things, and then we also say, well, these people on the front lines are not doing what we need to. Okay, well, what can I do to help them out, as opposed to penalize them or say, well, you have to hit. No. Why aren't they doing that? Do you have them doing other things, or have you set certain metrics that are really counter to what it is you really want to accomplish?
Yeah.
And I think it's in that part of the business.
Yeah.
Let me ask you both. I'm just going to poll you both as experienced business people. So if I have a dealership that has traditionally done that disqualifying early on, they ask the questions right in that first 60 seconds, and we switch that up and we start, bringing customers further into the process. What would be your best guess, Dave, you first, in terms of how much I would increase my closing percentage? What do you think I would improve if I moved from a disqualifying situation to being more inclusive and inviting customers deeper in the process?
Do you want to go me first?
Yeah, you first.
I would well, I'm going to qualify mine. I would say probably 25%, maybe even higher. The issue is going to be, I think, on good customer service, and I experienced this for quite literally over a decade. It might not be that day, and that's the hard thing, is that you might have to invest some time up front, and it pays off down the road. And that's hard for everybody in these transactional situations of like, well, I helped that gentleman 4 months ago.
Right.
They liked us. They came back in. Does that get tracked? And that's that whole understanding of how you kind of manage those pipelines, those people. So I think it could even be higher, but I think even just seeing somebody, being patient, letting them be seen, talking to them, instead of doing the disqualifying stuff, like, let's just have a conversation, understanding why they're there, and what it is. I mean, what's the value? What's the value exchange we can do for each other? And trying to get to that, and how can I help you out, and what can I show you, as opposed to, I'm sorry, I don't even want to talk to you unless you hit these things. I think it could even go higher than that.
Yeah. Good. What do you think, Michelle?
So I very similar thoughts as Dave, except I was thinking, like, if you're looking at the day of, maybe somewhere around 10 to 15%. But if you're looking at the future, or people, because I see dealerships, and I love this, that even if they didn't get through the thing, but they refer people, and we've got your name down, and if you refer people, we're going to give you $100 check for whatever. And so you have something like that, as well as, we've treated you really well. By darn, you're probably going to get 1 or 2 sales off of that exchange, off of that experience.
And I think, from my own perspective, I think we could, same day, and you're absolutely right about picking up more business later, but I think the same day we could we could improve our closing ratio by 15, 20%. So if that's true, then can't we hire some extra people? If most of our dealers just looked at what's that move, what's that change in terms of my numbers? Can I not afford to hire an extra person, and go ahead and invest the time with customers? Yes, it's going to take more time per customer. I'm going to invest time with people who don't ultimately buy, which means I'm going to need more people. But gosh, I mean, that 15, 20% easily adds people to the staff, right?
Absolutely. And I'll give you a quick anecdote. Sorry, I know we're running long here. I don't know how Berkshire Hathaway bought RC Willey years ago.
Really?
As a group, and I don't know how widespread RC Willey.
For those of you who don't know, RC Willey is one of the big furniture stores in the Salt Lake area.
In Salt Lake, and in generally, I think in the West now. But I mean, they were so profitable that Buffett came in and purchased them, and they ran. So I happen to know one of the kids I grew up with. His dad was like one of the general managers. They made a very distinct switch early on when he came in. So he came in, they were languishing, and he was all about customer service. And what he said is we need to quadruple the number of people on the floor, which some people went, oh my gosh, are you kidding? That's too many people. It's just, this is going to be crazy. And he said, no, I want to make sure that everyone in there gets asked if they need help, at least, and he had a metric, so many times. So they quadrupled their staff. Well, their profits went through the roof eventually. It wasn't overnight, but eventually. And so that became the kind of the moniker, right? Of like, you go into RC Willey, it can be annoying, I think eventually, but you're not getting out of there, not getting asked for help at least 3 or 4 times.
You've got a great point. Yeah.
You're just not. And I mean, that was a very real case where, this was eventually an acquisition target by one of the, the great investors, in a company that became very profitable. And that one decision led to their explosive growth.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I get where you're saying, because we've been to RC Willey and our other furniture stores, and it's kind of like, nope, don't need help. Nope, don't. And that's a little bit irritating. But you want to know what's even more irritating is wanting to buy something and no one will help you.
Right.
That's more irritating. Yeah.
Right. Or when you make that mental switch of like, yes, I want that thing, then I need to talk to someone, and no one can be found.
No one can be found.
Has
And-
any of the three of us not bought something in RC Willie?
I bought all kinds of stuff. Mercy will.
See, regardless of how annoying it is, you end up buying. So it's like, we obviously want to be able to have attention.
And they also were the biggest dealer of hot dogs, by the way. That was another one. A little fun fact of
like the outside.
Yeah, they did the hot dog, whatever it was, every Friday, and so that was another thing. So anyway, I mean, I share that as a. It was a kind of a revolutionary approach at the time of like, why would you add that much in overhead to your staff? He did, and it was probably one of the better decisions that was made. And it just shows that, you know, eventually if you can really service a customer, help a customer, and be there when they need it, it does pay dividends.
Yeah. We just had a comment on one of our old YouTube videos from like 8 months ago about a car dealership. We did a story about a car dealership in Oklahoma City that sold 2,000 cars in a month. They used to have 80 salespeople on the floor on a Saturday morning at a car dealership. So so it gives you, you know, and they set records. But anyway,
they were kind of like nutty.
Yeah, it was.
But did we talk to you about that one?
No, I'm curious about it. That sounds interesting.
What's that?
What was the name?
Lynn Hickey Dodge.
Do you remember Lynn Hickey Dodge? Evil Knievel with Lynn Hickey Dodge. Yeah. So you saw it too. I lived in Seattle and I saw that.
Yeah. Okay. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oklahoma, where this happened. Yep.
Folks, we're not coming down from this conversion van until we sold 1,000 cars.
All right. I think we've taken up enough time. Dave, thanks so much for joining. We enjoy having you. You know,
I enjoy being here. It's fun to talk.
Yeah.
Fun to chat about all this stuff. So
it kind of gives us a reason to chat. While we're doing something that's productive too.
Right.
So it's perfect.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and put you backstage. Really appreciate you being here. And if you want to stick around for just a minute, we're just going to wrap up. Thanks.
See everyone.
Thanks. All righty. Well,
it's good to have.
It was a happy ending. Yeah, it's good to have smart people. Yes, absolutely. That too. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We do again. Karen Barnett is going to be joining us on Friday,
and then Chuck the Friday after that. Chuck Bonanno,
the following Friday,
executive director.
So we're looking forward to seeing you all then. So be watching for that. Make sure you tune in and have yourselves a rest of your day. Really great. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.